Out in Broomfield, where the foothills rise, there's a little place with open skies.
Hello, I'm Dr. Decibel, and this is The Refuge. Today, we're exploring the Refuge's core value of engagement, the willingness to show up fully, to get our hands dirty, and, when necessary, let our hearts break for the sake of another person's story. To help bring this to life, I'm here with two extraordinary leaders in our community, Katie Hinshaw and Savannah Smith. They coordinate Refuge Reads, a one-on-one tutoring program that supports kids who are behind in reading, writing, and spelling, and they also serve as executive functioning coaches. Both have been part of the Refuge for many years, Savannah for over 16, and their leadership extends far beyond the classroom. They're deeply involved in equity and justice work across Broomfield, including pride, immigration support, and advocacy. Their work is grounded in presence, courage, and hands-on love for the community. Let's get into it.
A wooden door, a welcome sign. It's more than walls, it's hearts combined.
Katie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself to our audience.
So I'm a teacher and a mom of three, and I took this journey and wound up at the Refuge by my son needing dyslexia tutoring, and I realized how expensive it was. So then I did some research, and I found this amazing facility, the Refuge, that was doing free tutoring. And I thought, there's no way. And so I came and I checked it out, and they really were. Like, I did a parent swap. I swapped with another parent. We swapped each other's child and tutored. And so that's how I ended up here. And within a few weeks, I approached Savannah, and the other woman, Angela, and said, so is this a church? Like, what is this? And they said, oh no, it's just a healing hub of community. And I said, well, do I need to tithe or anything? And they're like, oh no, everyone's welcome. And I just couldn't bend my brain to accept that we were just welcome for just a need to just be here. So as the weeks went on and I kept inserting myself into how things worked in the background, I said, can I come on and volunteer? And so Angela then stepped back and I stepped into Angela's spot. And we have been working, Savannah and I have been working together for almost 8.5 years of tutoring. And now it's part of my daily life, and I wouldn't be anywhere else without it. I'm just so happy to be here.
And Savannah.
Hi.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. My name is Savannah Smith, and I am also a mom of three. I have 3 girls, whereas Katie has 3 boys. So we complement each other really well in that aspect. And I am also a teacher. I teach preschool, which is a little crazy, but it's a little fun. And I also tutor outside of the Refuge Reads, and I do my own tutoring and work and jump through a lot of hoops. We are trying to make the world a better place by having kids read. And we are just really trying to navigate what it looks like to be parents and working parents and help as many people as we can. And so I think that is kind of a little part of my journey along the way, and how Refuge has kind of aided in that journey and helped me as a human being and helped my kids and helped us connect with other people and families. And so it's just a big part of my life. I think, like Katie said, it's every day is a little bit of Refuge sprinkled in there.
So we're here to talk about engagement. Savannah, what is engagement? How would you define engagement?
I think engagement is truly about connecting with those around you in a really authentic and meaningful way. I think authenticity is really important. And it feels like in order to engage truly with those around you and the community, you have to truly feel and be authentic in yourself, in what you do, in your work. And I think it's really understanding and being compassionate to everyone around you and being able to engage wholly and truly with each person where they're at and in whatever they're doing, and just kind of wade your way through the world with each other holding on.
What about you, Katie?
I feel like engagement is, for me, your daily joy of like how I engage with everybody at a certain organic level. So somebody's needs, somebody's frustrations, how can I be present at that moment and meet them when they're at? And can they meet me where I'm at? Because sometimes I'm having a bad day. And so with that engagement of like building that community, whether it's with my kids or my kids' school or my work here, I just feel like the engagement of like making connections, being grounded, and just living to fulfill, hopefully, joy at some point in our day.
What if you had to take all that and put it into any other word but engagement?
Life.
Oh, one word. I think like connection.
Fantastic. So, Savannah, tell us about a moment when you chose to step in rather than step back.
I think that is an interesting concept because I would say I can be pretty passive unless I'm met with a need. And I think when I see something bigger than myself out there, I'm more likely to step in than step back. And I think actually being in Refuge Reads, there's been a lot of times where kids have certain needs that need to be met and they're not being met. And it's really important that we have to advocate for them because they don't have a voice for themselves. There was a time when one of our young kiddos, she was struggling at school and she was not making classes work. She was not having good time with teachers. She was just not connecting and she was struggling. And she'd come in and she'd share this with her tutor. Her tutor would be like, I don't know how to handle this. I don't know what to do. And so Katie and I both reached out to the school and we're like, hey, we need to make something work for her because this isn't working. She is an English language learner. She has severe dyslexia and she just wasn't getting her needs met to the point where she was coming in when we were doing tutoring and she was crying and her mom didn't know what to do. And they were just struggling with how to get those needs met. So normally we don't go outside of our walls of Refuge Reads to go into schools and to connect with people. Like if people need our help with that, we will, but it's not like a service we offer. We just strictly do tutoring here at the Refuge. But in that moment, it felt like it was bigger than us. Like this little sweet child was coming and just sobbing and she was not connecting with what she needed help with. And it was like almost felt like we had to do something to step outside of what we would deem as our comfort zone and really step in and advocate for her because she didn't have a voice for herself.
And I think through that, we learned that there was a lot of because of the language barrier, there was a lot of missteps that had not happened in the school, right? She wasn't being supported. And I don't think the school realized she was getting outside tutoring support and still struggling to make growth.
Circle back to our conversation earlier about a diversity or lack thereof in the state of Colorado, at least along the Denver Front Range where we live. And this wouldn't have happened in Los Angeles.
No.
Or San Francisco. Or probably New York, or probably maybe even Chicago.
For sure. Yes.
How do you both, and you take your time or feel free to jump in whichever, but how do you balance the courage with the compassion?
I think the courage for me is when I went to school to be a teacher, I literally went to school because I struggled with reading my whole life, and I thought teachers were hiding things from me. I went through school and realized and thought they were hiding information from me. So then I went to college and I thought, well, if I can teach kids how to read, then I'll figure out all the magic words or magic things. And I realized that wasn't really it. I just was a slow reader. That's what I just kept thinking. Like my peers would read a page in like 2 minutes and I'd be 4 minutes. And it's like, oh my gosh. So I just over college, I definitely learned to just accommodate for myself and got audiobooks. So I just learned how to read faster and keep up. And so what I learned was that took a lot of courage for me to get through college with struggling with reading and not really knowing what was going on, that I wanted to graduate from college and be able to help anybody learn how to read. And then I realized there wasn't really anything magical that I learned out of college. So then I get into teaching and I realized like, boy, I'm mathematically realizing a third of my kids aren't hitting the expected reading grade benchmark, right? And so I thought, I'm doing everything I've been told to do. So you fast forward, and I had my own son, and I knew something was different about my middle child from 6 months old. Like, I knew something is different. We put him in Montessori school. We did all these other things, and nothing really clicked for him. And they always kept telling me, teachers kept saying, we think he can't hear. We think he has a speech problem, which he did have speech delays, and that is a common factor. But so as I learned when we got him in kindergarten, I realized, well, I had a parent question me about dyslexia. And I had told them when I graduated college, we had read like a page on it, and that it's pretty uncommon. So then I did my own research when my middle went to kindergarten, and I realized, ooh, he hits 8 out of the 10 top markers. He hits 8 out of the 10 top markers for dyslexia. So I then had to start digging out. And so I realized there that like once I learned not how to teach reading properly in college. So I wasn't doing anything better. So my compassion was, if I hold on.
And you got yourself through college without any help.
Yes,
you
I figured
dealt with your.
I ended up being dyslexic. I learned that through my son's diagnosis.
Right.
I was like, holy cow.
But you did that without reaching out to anyone else to get help. You just accommodated and fought your way through it.
Yes, and just made the adjustments that needed. And so then I realized, so that compassion was always there because I just couldn't figure out what was wrong with me and why nobody could just help me through. Like, why was it so hard to learn how to read? And then once I learned how to teach the science of reading, which is how we teach reading here at the Refuge. Once I learned how to teach that, I was like, oh my gosh, it was like opening a magic box. All the answered questions for me, like why shun says shun, or, all these, why consonants and syllables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it connected that piece of the compassion with the courage. Like,
yes.
You had the courage, so you could connect with the kids who were coming in here and the students that were coming in here and kind of meet them where they were at and know that they were like having these big feelings of feeling like a failure or feeling like they weren't good enough. Mm-hmm. And then connect with, oh, I can feel what you're saying. And guess what? We can help you and we can connect. And I would say like that is the biggest piece that I've gotten out of working particularly with Refuge Reads is that it starts off as this, we're a tutoring program. We offer reading support, but it is so much more than that. We are offering a place for people to feel like they're accepted, they're wanted, they're okay. They're not like, they might learn a little different, their brain might be a little different, but that doesn't make them any less. And it is beautiful to see that courage that these kids have and these even adults. We had a 65-year-old woman come through and she just wanted to read.
Yep.
She just wanted to read her Bible in particular, a women's group, because that was like what she wanted to do since she was little. And it gave her the ability to even just read a little bit. And so it was more than just reading. Like Katie and I say all the time, our goal is to get out of a job here. Yeah. Like, we don't want to have tutoring services. We want everyone to be able to have those needs met where they're at. Like, that is the most important thing for us as teachers, I'm honestly as human beings, is to see that everyone succeeds. And even though they might feel different or they might feel like they're failing in whatever realm it is that we can show them that that's not the case, that their brain might work a little differently and that's okay, and that we are a community of people whose brains all work a little differently. And we have provided that like courage to step up and speak out in a compassionate way.
Yeah. And just a quick little note. So when my son was going through the program here at the Refuge, he got to second grade and he needed to be medicated for ADHD. And we had a conversation and I learned through this conversation with the therapist that like, I said, well, your brain thinks differently, like just like all the kids at the Refuge. And that was when he had an aha moment. He had no idea that like everybody else at the Refuge struggled reading. He just thought it was just typical. And so it was kind of funny that he was like, oh, so I'm not alone. So I realized then like having these open conversations of caring and compassion is so important because I even forgot to tell my son like, we're doing this because you're dyslexic or whatever. And So making that connection is also so powerful.
Sometimes working with community can be uncomfortable. Has that ever been the case? And how did you lean into it? Savannah?
That's a hard one. I would say in the community as a whole, we've had a lot of really hard things that have happened, like in the refuge community as a giant umbrella. There have been a lot of really, really hard things that have occurred, and we've kind of just had to walk through it. In our little Refuge Reads, we've had some really hard things that have happened that we've had to kind of, I don't want to say tiptoe, but we kind of had to walk through it. And it was really hard. And there was a lot of tears. And there was a lot of like, what are we doing? Like, where do we go from here?
So community work often requires a willingness to lean into what's uncomfortable. How has that affected you in Refuge Reads?
So we have had a lot of hard instances. I think the hardest one that we've had in the last few years happened a couple years ago, where we had one of our kiddos who we found out was being abused by one of their caretakers. And it was really hard. It all kind of like collided and happened. We were at Refuge Reads, and then the mom came in and talked to us at the end, and she was like, this happened. And it broke us because we know this kiddo, and
We knew the caretaker.
And we knew all of these details of these little hearts. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to walk through as a teacher. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to walk through as a parent, and as someone who was trusted with these children, and to know that something awful and unexplainable happened to them during their time where they were sharing time with us at the Refuge Reads was really hard. We had to go through an investigation. We had to talk to police officers. We had to talk to lawyers. It was a lot of tears, a lot of big emotions. We also had to hold this family really close to our hearts. They came to us because they trusted us, and they felt like, honestly, we were some of the only people that could hold them during this time, because they didn't want to share it with a lot of people, but we knew about it. And so they felt like they could share their pain with us. And so on top of holding like our own individual pain, we had to hold the pain of this family, of these children, of the tutor who was working with the child. So it was a really vulnerable time for all of us who were involved. It was vulnerable for the family. And it was really devastating to know that those things could happen so close to home in a way that really affected people we loved and cared about in our community. And just knowing that we can't stop everything, but what we can do after is hold these families and these kids close and know that they have a safe place to land, and that we can be that community and safe place for them.
Yeah, and I feel like walking through it with the family, being able to be the advocate in a way, like that the mom did depend on us and came to us. And I think that solidified what I do every day. Why I'm a teacher, why I want to show up here, why I want to help others, is that I can't always walk through these things by myself, but I can be somebody's rock and shoulder to lean on when they're struggling, right? Like, I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to hear it. So
It takes a lot to carry that pain. Engagement can be messy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that as I was walking through that, I kept thinking to myself, how would I want to be treated if this is me? What's my empathy? What does that look like? And how do we show up for that little child every week, right? Like, I can't fall apart because they don't have the option to fall apart. So, like, just being strong and being a safe spot to come to and being consistent, right?
Can you tell us about how Refuge Reads started?
I for sure can tell you that. That was also another hard thing that birthed something beautiful. So during our inception, I guess I would say, I decided to do, talking about like courage, I decided to step out of my comfort zone and kind of jump into this group of people who were coming together with the Refuge. So I jumped onto this, I don't know if I want to call it a board. I don't know what it was. It was just a transition group. We were kind of leaving some old things behind and kind of venturing into a new refuge space. So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll jump onto that. Why not? We got to do something new. And so that's where I met Angela Dormish. And Kathy was actually the one who was like, hey, I think you guys should sit next to each other and you guys should talk because you have a lot of similar things you like love to do. And she was talking about reading. So we started talking and Angela was super excited. She's like, oh my gosh, I've been wanting to start tutoring. And I was like, oh, really? That sounds awesome. And so we're talking about it more and we're just trying to like figure out, okay, what would that look like? What would tutoring look like under the Refuge umbrella? And how would we bring all of our skills together to kind of help the broader community? So her and I jumped on board and we were like, yeah, let's just do it. Let's just take a leap and we're just going to go and see where it leads us. I was homeschooling at the time. So I have 3 kiddos myself, and then I was also homeschooling my nephew. So I was homeschooling 5 kiddos. And my middle child was really struggling with reading. And so I was like, oh my gosh, but it's so expensive to get tutoring. And I was a stay-at-home mom. My sister and I kind of worked together to kind of figure out how we could make it best work. And so I was like, oh my gosh, it's too expensive. So I'm talking to Angela and I was like, okay, well, how can we make this work? What would this look like to bring people like myself who can't afford tutoring, but really want to create a place in which their child can thrive? Like, it shouldn't just be a monetary thing. Like, you shouldn't have to just have money to be able to get your child's needs met. And so we were talking about it, and I think that was in 2017. I feel like it was
2016.
2016? Yeah, it was almost 10 years ago. So next year would be our 10-year anniversary. And so we jumped on it. We were on a group together in July of 2016. And by September, we had opened our doors and we were like, okay, Angela is incredible at fundraising and was like able to help us get all the curriculum. And then I just jumped on and I was like, yeah, I will be here every Tuesday and Thursday and I will be the front man for it. And we just kind of went off from there. And so that was kind of our inception, was this little dream of we want to get everyone to be able to be literate and to not make them pay for it. Like, that shouldn't be a luxury. That should be just a given.
What are some of the doors that people don't maybe realize literacy opens up beyond academics?
Yeah. So one of the things when I was learning about dyslexia is the pipeline to prison. And so I can't remember the exact percentage rate, but it's like 84% or 80% of prisoners are undiagnosed dyslexic. Because if you can't read, you can't hold the job. You can't fill out a job application. There's so many things that are in your way, right? And so what happened, the short version is, somebody pretty much packaged whole language in a bow back in 30, 40 years ago. And so we weren't taught, many of us weren't taught the science of reading strategies. And so now there's many states that are turning over to science of reading. And so we're starting to see the data go up. So when you see the data go up, we know that the kids are reading. If we taught every student to read using the science of reading, we would see almost 90% reading accuracy.
What is the science of reading?
So the science of reading was founded after one of the World War I or II. And so they were studying TBI, traumatic brain injuries. And they Orton Gillingham came up with a sensory-based learning to read. And so it's a lot of physical connections.
Like kinesthetic learning, and it's kind of touching on every single learning style. So it's not just like reading or writing or anything like that. It is like, I learn by touching and feeling. So that kind of aids in that. Or I learn by visual, or I learn by hearing. So it kind of combines all of those things to give every single type of learner the ability to advance and pull from what they know and how they learn in order to really succeed. So it's this whole science-based methodology of how you can teach reading so every single type of child will have the access to be able to gain that like knowledge of literacy in a short but sweet way.
Yeah.
It's way more complex than that, but that's the short and sweet version.
What's something maybe you guys have learned from the kids?
I think something I've learned from the kids is to just show up. You know, I can remember so many times kids crying, throwing a fit, but like when they leave us and they're reading and they have favorite books, I know that their lives are forever going to grow beyond these doors, right? Like we sat through their icky moments showing up like, who wants to come to tutoring after school 2 times a week? No, that sounds awful. But trying to remember what it's like to be a student, remember what it's like to be a young child or adult, and knowing that they may not see it right now, but this is the best gift for their future because this is going to change their life no matter what, whether they can see it right now or not. And so standing with them in the icky of like, nope, you know, I can remember kids crying under the tables and, you know, you're like embarrassed as they're like, I hate tutoring in front of their tutors. And you're like, it's okay, you know, because we have volunteer tutors. And it's like, you know, so just getting through that.
And it's more, I think, piggybacking off that, it's like, it's more than just the tutoring. Like, it's way deeper than that. Like she said, how it goes from these kids being all bummed about coming and tutoring to where you're seeing them excited to show you their report card, are excited to tell you that they read a whole book. It's like, for me, I think the biggest thing that I have gained from this is it is the connection piece. It is the community that these kids really sink onto, like grasp onto. It is that moments where they can come in and they go up to their tutor and they're like, oh my gosh, I scored a 97 on my reading maps testing or something like fluency. And they're so excited to share in that joy because they know that there's this connection piece like, oh, I'm tutoring and it stinks and it's awful sometimes, but it's given me this beautiful like connection and relationship. We even had tutors come in and be like, oh my gosh, I love being with my kiddo and talking to them and connecting with them. And years after, like most of our kids are with their tutors for years. So they see them grow and they see them change. And it's that connection piece. And that I think that those relationship buildings, that's like super beautiful.
Yeah. And I think it's also interesting. We've had tutors that have stayed with students for many years and then they kind of leave. The students are done and the tutors are done, they leave. And almost all of our tutors have come back.
Mm-hmm.
Like legit. They're like, you know, 6 months or a year later, oh, can I come back and tutor? And I think that's just so telling because it's just so powerful when 2 hours a week makes such a huge impact, right? So.
We talked about that moment that really broke your heart. Maybe tell us about a moment that renewed your hope.
So I got to tutor, one of my first students was tutoring that 65-year-old woman who wanted to read the Bible at Bible study. And we got pretty far and then the pandemic happened. And so she came back like a couple years later and we learned that she is now teaching her grandchildren to read because it's hereditary, right? So look at that gift of my time, 2 hours a week for this woman to let her be able to learn how to read the Bible. And then now she's teaching.
The ripple effect that it's had.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, that to me was like, oh, I can't stop doing this. Even on the days when it's hard and my personal life's falling apart, there's like, no, I can't. That's so powerful.
Yeah, I think it's hard to pick just one. I keep trying to like go through my little memory library and I think there's just like beautiful moments of like, I don't know, trying to think throughout. There's just such beautiful moments. Like, I think it's just those moments that all coincide. There have been moments where Katie and I both, where we have like one student show up and we both are like so defeated. And we're like, well, should we keep doing this? And then it's almost immediately like the universe or whatever is telling us, no, you got to keep going because something little will happen. A parent will come crying and be like, you don't know what gift you have given our child by giving them the courage to stand up and feel like they have the ability to read. We had one little girl. She's so awesome. She has been with us, 2.5 years. She started with us in middle school and now she's in high school. And I was overhearing her read the other day and she was reading long paragraphs with crazy multisyllabic words. And she was so confidently speaking her voice. And she was even telling her tutor, like, she came up to her tutor and she was like, yeah, I got to do a speech in front of my whole class. And before, like 2 years ago, she would never have done that. But she had the courage to stand up and be like, yeah, I feel like I'm confident enough to do that and be able to read what I'm saying. So it's like, it's not one big thing. It feels like it's all these little moments that kind of light up throughout the whole spectrum of what we do.
Let's talk about your work with Broomfield Pride.
Okay, yeah. It's super fun. So I have 2 kiddos who one is trans and one is LGBTQ. Technically, they both are, I guess. That's a broad umbrella. But so we kind of just love being a part of Broomfield Pride in any way we can. And it is awesome to see the work in which the Refuge does as a whole, to have people come up and be like, oh my gosh, we've heard about you. They have the Refuge Rainbow, which is an amazing group for teenagers and young people to come and feel accepted and to just have a community. I think it's all about community. So when I went to Broomfield Pride, it was so fun. We did glitter tattoos and we just had people come up to us. I saw people from outside my refuge life who came up and were like, oh my gosh, we didn't know you'd be here. And so it was really fun to make that connection outside just this little community and kind of see how, like you were saying earlier, the ripple effects. Like, it is bigger than just us. And it is bigger than these little moments. And even like all these little glitter tattoos where you're putting them on people and they're so excited to have just the smallest glitter tattoo, but it's more than that. It's like the human connection piece. It's like some of these kids that were coming up to us like don't feel that love from someone. They don't feel that love from a mother. And it's like to have that moment to be able to be that mother for someone is like one of the greatest gifts that they could give me that they didn't even realize, and a gift maybe I could give back to them. I think it's more than volunteering or being part of Broomfield Pride. It is just something beautiful like that we can do.
Does advocacy help you define justice?
That is a good question.
I mean, for me, I do a lot of work in the dyslexia circles. And so the advocacy work that I put here, I have now experienced, and I can now bring it to the Capitol and we have now put in laws because of some of the advocacy work that the parents have done. And so here, I just think being in these doors and having the experience and the opportunity to do what I do here has given me the chance to be an advocate outside of this building for all students, even if they're not in here. And so I hope that does bring justice. Is it going to fix it in 5 years? No, but I'm definitely seeing the slow, methodical movements in a positive direction.
I was just going to say, I was thinking, I feel like advocacy is birthed from injustice. So there's definitely an intrinsic connection between advocacy and justice because it starts with injustice. And so you have to create advocacy in order to create the justice that is necessary to see, honestly, this sounds silly, but to see the change we want to see in the world. And that is like the biggest thing, right? So we have to be advocates and stand up and be courageous and do something outside of our comfort zone in order to see justice that we want to see in the world for maybe people who don't have the courage to stand up for themselves or people who don't have the ability or to, because I feel like Katie and I both are in a space where we have the ability to be advocates and we have the ability to stand up. And that I take as like, I hold that right. It's very sacred that we have the ability to do that and that we have to use that in order to create a sense of justice or try to make a way towards what we would deem as justice, I guess.
Let me ask you this. How do you keep up hope?
I feel like the way I keep up hope is Savannah and I don't know if you know we do this, but like it's a tag team of like, I'm over it. I'm frustrated. I watch too many TikToks. I'm down a rabbit hole. And then she'll say something positive. And then she'll come in and be like, I've had it. And I'm just like, yeah, but remember, I feel like that's a lot of team support because we took a hiatus this summer. And that's a first in all these years. her and I both stepped back. And so when I came back, I was like, we had 2 students, and I was like, I think we need to move and close the doors. And she's like, let's just give it 30 more days. This is Savannah, who doesn't quit anything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, fine, I'll give you 30 more days. And then amazingly, we had tutors showing up that wanted to volunteer. And I was like, So I think it's just I believe in putting it in the universe and being like, if this is where I'm supposed to be, will the doors open?
Yeah, I think it's always been these little moments of when we both feel like, I think it's not worth it. It's like, what are we doing here? It's like a lot of time and energy, and what are we doing here? That just these little glimpses that the universe is like sprinkling around and being like, this is why you're here.
What are these glimpses that keep you committed when the work gets heavy?
I think when a kid comes in and they're really excited and they show you like, oh my gosh, I got this on my report, or a mom comes in. Like we had a mom last week whose kiddos started tutoring, and she came in and she was just like, you don't know how thankful I am. Like we have been looking and looking and looking, and you don't know how thankful I am that you guys are here and you guys are offering this service and you guys are willing to work with us and do all these things. And it's like those little moments. I think you had a moment a couple months ago, Katie, where you were at a bus stop and this mom just started sobbing when she found out what you do here at the Refuge, and she was just sobbing.
Yeah. So I was at my son's bus stop, and this mom's like frustrated that her child couldn't read. And I explained to her what we do. And I was like, can you come by on a Tuesday, Thursday and check us out? And she's like, yes. So she came, and now he's here and he's being tutored. And I mean, his life is changing. And that's just within 2 months. And so had you not given me that 30 days, Savannah, I don't know if we'd be here, right? Like, and so I think that the glimpses for me is also, you're really good at this, Savannah, but we had a mom come in and she said, look, I found these books at the library and they don't have them all, and we ordered them for her. And she's read almost the whole series, I think, right? Like, and so we were able to buy that for her and put it in our library. And so I think that is also it. Like, when do we see children interested in any books, right? Like these kids walked in not being able to like know the letters and their sounds, some of them. And now they're asking us, can we get more of these books? Like the library doesn't have them all, or the whole series. And so I just think like that is the best time, energy, and effort well spent, because I know those little guys are going to go home and read them and enjoy them. So yeah.
Before we wrap up, I want to know, and I think our listeners would like to know, what do you hope that people carry forward about engagement in their own lives day to day?
I think that the core of engagement is relationships. And I think creating those relationships and connection and being real and authentic and just showing up. Sometimes engagement doesn't look like always being the extroverted person. Like I am not an extroverted person. But the thing that matters is I'm showing up, I'm being vulnerable, I'm connecting with people in a space where they're also feeling vulnerable, and sometimes they're at their bottom, and I get to witness that in all its vulnerability, and I also get to be party to that. I can be vulnerable with people here. I can be in a space that feels beautiful. And to me, like, that is the beauty of the Refuge in its whole when it comes to engagement, that I get to connect with people that I never would have met before. And I get to be a part of that in this big, beautiful world. And that to me is just like a gift beyond compare.
Yeah. And I think for me, engagement, I took a leap of faith, showing up, trying something that I was in desperate need as a mom. And now my whole life with my children has changed. We got to take part, and me and my children got to take part a couple of years ago on a home unhoused tour here in Broomfield. We had some unhoused people walk us through what a day in a life is like, and I thought it was pretty open. Like, I understand what it means to be unhoused, but no, that was eye-opening, and that was nothing. And I am so thankful that I was given the privilege to hear other stories that I didn't understand. And so I just think things like that of engagement is, I would never have had these experiences if I didn't step in and try it. And so I am grateful that there's never been any pressure. You know, when I was in church, there was always pressure to like, come. But here it's like, oh, if you're around, just come, no big deal. And I just think about all the lives that have entered my life that have taught me things, especially like single moms. I'm married, but I have met a mom through single moms, like through some other groups through the Refuge, and our oldest children are on very similar paths. And just to be able to check in with each other at events or when we do food distribution, when we see each other, we get to like have these conversations that we're seen in a world where we're so busy not being seen, being the moms and helping and being the helpers. And so that's just those connections, right? Like I have been given a gift beyond words, just being in this building and being able to have exposure to things that I didn't even know I needed exposure to.
When you listen to Katie and Savannah, it becomes clear that engagement isn't about grand gestures. It's about showing up, stepping in, staying present, even when things are complex or painful. Their work with the Refuge Reads, their advocacy for justice, and their presence in Broomfield reflect a deeper truth, that real community requires courage, consistency, and the willingness to be changed by the people we walk alongside. This is engagement in its purest form. Dirty hands, hearts open, lives intertwined. Thank you, Katie and Savannah, for the way you lead and the way you love this community. Thanks for joining us for episode 4 of This is the Refuge, and a huge thanks to Katie and Savannah for their leadership, their advocacy, and the work they pour into this community every single day. We'll continue exploring the core values of the Refuge in upcoming episodes. For more information about the community and its programs, visit therefugeonline.org. I'm Dr. Decibel. This is The Refuge, a community shaped by presence, courage, creativity, and hope. Show up where you are. We'll meet you here next time.